have hit residential areas in Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, injuring 32 people, including 2 children. The overnight strike targeted the Slobidsky, Osnovyansky, and Nemyslyansky districts, sparking fires that forced dozens of residents to flee. Separately, 6 of the injured have been hospitalized and 1 drone struck near a medical facility, injuring a doctor and damaging nearby vehicles. Ukraine's emergency services shows firefighters battling the blaze and rescuers helping residents to safety. Kharkiv is just 30 kilometers from the Russian border and has near daily missile and drone attacks since the war began. Now for this discussion, we welcome Professor Vasilin Popovsky. He's a professor and vice dean at Jindal Global Law School, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us again. Good to see you. Professor, now looking at this, what is your analysis on the front lines of the ongoing Ukraine and Russia war? And also, I wanted to know your take on why is Zelensky only thinking to join Turkey talks while Putin or Russia doesn't show up?
Yes, first of all, we have another very serious strikes in Kharkiv and a lot of blast and fires, which it's a residential part of Kharkiv, and it's very clear who is hitting civilian targets and trying to inflict pain on the citizens of a big city, the second big city, Kharkiv. And that's once again and again demonstrates the criminality of the regime in Russia. They don't fight a war. They try to kill as much civilians as possible. Simple as that. But on another hand, yes, there is a willingness in Ukraine, and President Zelensky continuously offered to meet and to talk. Some of those talks produce prisoners exchanges in the past in Turkey. There were 2 or 3 rounds of those exchanges already. And Ukraine is cooperative. It shows goodwill. It wants to end the war. It is happy to negotiate. But on another hand, it's also firm that it does not surrender its territory. It wants a deal that is fair, that is in alliance with the international law and the territorial sovereignty and political independence of Ukraine. Obviously, following international rules and norms is what Ukraine wants. And on the opposite, we have exactly the contrasting position in Moscow. They simply deny even to accept a ceasefire, temporary ceasefire, only 30 days. And this was repeatedly suggested by Donald Trump, by Ukrainian president. Russia simply doesn't cooperate even with a simple demand to stop fire for 30 days. What negotiation can happen without ceasefire? I don't understand the Russian positions here. And President Putin can immediately stop the fire. He simply needs a phone call to the generals and to say, stop the fire. We want peace. We haven't seen this for the last 10 and a half months this year. Since Donald Trump is a president, there were repeated demands for ceasefire that Russia denies. And for that matter, diplomacy is paralyzed because of Russia, but also war continues because of Russia. There is no ceasefire. Russia continues to kill civilians. And I'm wondering when the patience of Donald Trump will expire, and then what will follow is a very severe response from Washington, more sanctions on Russia, freezing the assets, using the assets to rebuild Ukraine. Supplying weapons to Ukraine is another measure that needs to happen urgently, including air defense, as to stop civilians being killed in those repeated attacks on the big cities.
Yes, indeed. And how do you think, how is this all affecting, or what do you think, how effective will it be that Russia is not going to be absent in these talks, but Ukraine and Turkey will be holding these talks. Whatever comes out, do you think this will be effective?
Well, we don't know. We will see how effective they will be. Any talks are necessary, even if they don't produce something immediate. Negotiations, exchange of opinions, trying to align positions, making it clear to the media and the public what the positions are always useful. Again, you are right, Asuma, that we need to see the Russian response to that, because Russia is holding, as I said earlier, the key to the ceasefire and the peace deal. Without Vladimir Putin ordering his troops to stop fire, we won't see any ceasefire. So for that matter, yes, Russia needs to also act. But in order for Russia to act, it needs to be really put into the corner, isolated, no negotiations until they accept reasonable, meaningful conditions for negotiations. So I don't see it's a big problem that Russia is not on the table, exactly because even with Russia on the table, if they don't accept meaningful conditions, there is no point to have Russia on the table. They need to stop fire, simple. And I agree. Until Russia doesn't stop fire and continue to kill civilians, what negotiations will? Nothing. No negotiations until Russia stops the fire. That condition should be met first and foremost as a precondition, because Russia is the aggressor. Russia started this 4 years ago. Ukraine is defending its territory. Every Ukrainian attack on Russia is defensive, saving people's lives.
Yes. Professor, please stay with us, and thank you for sharing that. Now we stay on this, viewers. Meanwhile, the Russian Defense Ministry has said that Ukraine tried to attack ATACMS missiles at targets deep inside of Russian territory, with Voronezh as the target. The ministry has also added that Ukraine used 4 ATACMS operational tactical missiles in the attack on Voronezh, but all of them were shot down. Now we welcome back Professor Vasilin Popovsky. He's a professor and vice dean at Jindal Global Law School. Thank you very much, Professor, for staying with us. Now, how is this Ukraine's use of long-range ATACMS missiles influencing the strategic calculation of both Russia and Western allies in this conflict? And also, as the war continues to move beyond current boundaries, what are we to make of current situation?
Yes, Ukraine is defending its territory, as I said. ATACMS are very long-range missiles. They are reaching deep into the Russian territory. And they are absolutely crucial here, because unless Russia feels the pain of the attacks on its own territory, it is not going to move anywhere. So obviously, and Ukrainians are targeting only military objects in Russia. These are usually airplanes, airports. These are oil and energy refineries and facilities. We don't see civilians in Russian territory being killed, which is very different from what the Russian strike on Ukraine produced, mostly civilian damage, very minimal military advantage of all those strikes that Russia produced in Ukraine. And on the opposite, every single Ukrainian hit on a Russian territory is bringing military advantage for Ukraine in terms of destroying Russian weapons, Russian airplanes, Russian oil refineries, which are the major export. And in fact, these are also military objects because Russia is exporting oil, and it is where all the money comes into the coffins of Kremlin to continue the war, to buy more weapons and soldiers from North Korea and elsewhere. So yes, these are important hits. Ukraine should continue hitting military targets all over Russian territory. So longer the missiles, better. They should go everywhere in Russia and hit military targets until, as I said earlier, Russia sits on the negotiation table and accept finally a ceasefire. So I regard this hits very important. I'm happy every time when a Russian target is hit and where fire is produced in every oil refinery. That's what we should see more and more of.
Thank you very much, Professor, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we stay in the region. Ukraine is pressuring European